Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Knife Chats with Tobias.
A gentleman is not defined by a certain type of knife, but by the fact that he carries a knife. For a gentleman does not simply stumble through life, but takes on life with courage, integrity, and humility. The knife he carries is a sign of his preparedness. For this reason, his knife becomes a reminder of what he is, what he was, and what he aspires to be.
Top 3 gentlemen's knives. That's an open tag that's going around, and I've been encouraged to join in on it. And looking at other people's videos, because I have looked at quite a few open tags on this top 3 gentlemen's knives, I realized that I have a very narrow-minded thought on what a gentleman's knife is versus several other people. And quite frankly, that's probably my fault and not theirs. I think actually their broader interpretation is probably a good thing. And it's probably more accurate than what I've always thought of as a gentleman's knife. As a matter of fact, even when I get within my gentleman's knives, I tend to break them down into even smaller categories, such as a fob knife, an equal end penknife, or a manicure knife. All of them are a type of gentleman's knife to me. But I've always been focused on the equal end penknife as a gentleman's knife. So, for instance, this is my Knife Chats with Tobias knife, and this is an equal end penknife, and you have a Spearmaster blade on one side, and then you have a pen blade on the other side. And to me, that has always been like the gentleman's knife. If you add a clevis or a key ring on the end here, and then it becomes a fob knife. So it would be a knife that you could use as a watch fob and pass it through a buttonhole on a vest so that somebody could not easily steal your pocket watch. If you replace the pen blade on the back here with a nail file, then it becomes a manicure knife. And that is very narrow-minded when I was thinking of as a gentleman's knife, but that's always been kind of my thought of what a gentleman's knife was. Whereas other people basically say it's a small pocket knife, usually around 3 inches long, maybe a little over 3 inches, but not much larger than that, and usually handsomely dressed, so with really nice covers on it or something like that. And with that kind of interpretation, you can be led to look at all sorts of knives as gentlemen's knives. And actually, that's a good thing. And I kind of like that idea. And that's why you're seeing here in front of you 19 knives. I've also got a third one, a 20th knife right off camera, which I'm going to break out at the very end. But before I go forward, let me just tell you what my top 3 gentlemen's knives are, and then I'm going to go into categories and what my top 3, well, these are my top 3s in different categories. But my top 3 gentleman knives are, first is right up here in front, the Boker 414, and this is the one with the, it's like the embossed metal handles, and then it's basically an equal end pen knife. So you have a Spearmaster blade, and then on the other side you have a pen blade. Now these, I collect a lot of these. These are probably my favorite equal end pen knife to collect, and that is why this knife is my favorite. This is actually the one by Boker is my favorite of all of those metal embossed handled ones. It's just really well made. The blade action is really smooth. It's got a nice easy pull, which is what I would expect in a gentleman's knife, but the action on the blades is really good. The fit and finish is just amazing, and just look at that seam. It is so crisp and clean. And that's why this is my favorite, or one of my favorite top 3 equal end pen knives. I will talk about these other 3 in a little bit. Now next up is my GEC Conductor. This was made in 2020, the 331220 GEC Conductor or Northfield Conductor. And you notice it is an equal end penknife. It's a swell center, which is kind of cool. You got the pinch bolsters, triple ring nickel silver bolsters going on, brass liners, beautiful sandbar stag, handle covers, brass pins, and well, you got a beautiful little clip blade going on here with a nice long pull. Great swedge going on there. See right there, Northfield unexcelled. See, Northfield unexcelled, made in USA, GEC carbon. So it's 1095 carbon steel blade. And then on the back side here, 331, that's the beginning of the pattern number. Flip it over, 220 on a nice little pin blade going on there. And who couldn't like something like that? It's definitely a nice little gentleman's knife. It's called the Conductor, so it has that little train thing going for me. So I really just like this knife. And that is my number 2 gentleman's knife. I really like this one. So you have a mid-range price here in the $100 range for this one. And then all the way in the back here is number 3, and that is my dog bone jack. And I guess a lot of people would say this is actually too big to be a gentleman's knife, because as you can see, it comes in at 3 5/8 inches long. So it's a little bit big for a gentleman's knife. But this one is just, I've always just really liked this knife, and I bought it to throw in with my equal end penknife collection, and it's just a beautiful knife. You got the long pull going on, you got the swedge at the top of the blade, and I don't know, just really looks good, feels good in the hand too. You got the dog bone shield, and you got a spay blade on the back, which is a little different, but you'll see in a minute that the spay blade on an equal end penknife was also known as an eraser blade, and it was used to remove ink from paper. So, and you also got this little whistle here, so you can hail a cab or something like that. I know it's for signaling dogs or for training dogs, but I don't know. The dog bone jack just always falls into my category of a gentleman's knife because of just how well it looks and everything else. It's a little on the large side, but I always go ahead and throw it in there, and that is my number 3. So you got the Boker here, the Northfield or GEC here, and then the Rough Rider dog bone jack. And those are my top 3 gentleman's knives. So why stick around while I talk about all these other knives? Well, that's up to you, but I think it'll be interesting to see why these other knives are out here too, because I consider these like my top 3 gentleman's knives in different categories. And well, let's get started. Now, you know how I was just talking about how the gentleman's knife is basically like an equal end pen knife. Well, what I thought I would do is look at a few other knives that are basically shrunk down knives of basically working knives. So it was like a working class knife that over time evolved into a smaller pattern for the purpose of the gentleman about town to carry, so that he would not be carrying a big workman's knife. And so it's like you have a knife, but you don't have that big workman's knife. And this is something that would be proper for the gentleman to carry. And that's where I'm going with these 3 knives here. These 3 knives are basically shrunk down versions of a big workman's knife. And they're kind of my 3 favorite small pattern knives that are based off of a larger pattern knife that was built for the workman. Now, the very first one is my GEC Templar. Coke bottle. So this is a small version of a knife that was at one time over 5 inches long. And if you see here, we're talking about something that comes in at 2 3/4 inches, but it is very much like a Coke bottle knife. You have a nice clip blade going on. In this case, you have something I really like, which are the barn door hinges, and you have the blue acrylic handle. But it's really just the itty bitty Coke bottle, and the blade length on it. Look at that. It is under 2 inches with a cutting edge that's 1 3/4 inches. And but it really is just a nice little Coke bottle. Wonderful half stop going on with it. You got a nice swedge on the blade there. And, well, you either like them or you don't like them. I love barn door hinges. And you've got the nickel silver barn door hinges going on. And you see all that other stuff going on there. Nice pins. I think it's nickel silver. Nickel silver liners. But a 1095 carbon steel blade. And this, what pattern number is this one? See, there's Northfield unexcelled again. And it's their 06. And this is made in 2019. But this is one of my favorite itty bitty Coke bottles, and obviously designed for the gentleman. And then we go over here and we have the Case Pocket Hunter. And this one is in the autumn orange, corn cob pocket worn jig, something like that. And again, 2 3/4 inches long. Wonderful little clip blade going on. And nice and tight and snug. Notice the brass liners. This is in their true sharp steel. You got the nickel silver bolsters. And I just love the way that bone looks in there. And so that is one of my favorite little pieces of pocket jewelry for the gentleman. And then again, we're going high, mid, and low range. And this is my Rough Rider Stoneworks mini Barlow, and it locks. It's a locking mini Barlow. And you see here, again, just over 2 3/4 inches, so 2 7/8 inches long. So it is small for a Barlow. And we all know that Barlow was like the working man's knife. It was like the cheapest knife you could ever get. But once you start putting in abalone and pearl, and even the reconstituted bloody basin jasper and turquoise, this just does not look like the knife that you would find in the working man's pocket, but you would see this as a gentleman's knife. Again, little wonderful knife, nice little clip blade. Nice lock on the back, very easy to work. And so there is my like my working man's gentleman's knives. Now next up, let's talk about elegant covers for the knife. And what could be more elegant than pearl? And so we've got 3 pearl-handled knives in the back here. And these are my 3 favorite pearl-handled knives that any proper gentleman would be proud to carry. And this one here, this is by Queen City. So yes, it's out of China. All of these are low-end knives. They're all in the $20 to $30 range tops. And that's $30 on the secondary market for this one here. But the other ones I think are still going for around $20. And the little Cub Lockback. A lot of people have mentioned that the Cub Lockback is a wonderful little gentleman's knife, and I have to agree with them. Not what I would have normally thought of, but yeah, it's one of my favorite patterns, the little Cub Lockback. And when you throw in it with pearl, how can that not be something that's just a great knife to have? Got the brass liners, the black lip mother of pearl covers, nickel silver bolsters, 448 stainless steel. That's throughout all of these knives. And then we have the mini canoe. This is also by Queen City. You got a long pole, wonderful little half stop going on, and you got the two little blades. And when you think about it, it is an equal end knife. It's just an equal end mini canoe. The long pole feels good in the hand. You got two really usable blades, a little thicker than you would expect on some of the other knives, and that's one of the reasons I picked it over like a toothpick or a peanut, because the blades are a little more usable. Yeah, just a beautiful knife, again with the nice half stops and stuff. So there's that one. And then this one, this is a harder one to find. This is a Rough Rider sleeve board whittler. They haven't made it in probably about 10 or 15 years, probably closer to 15 years. But it's just a beautiful knife. Does it fit the description? I think so. It falls in right at 3 1/8 of an inch long when closed. And you've got this nice little spear blade going on. And the spear blade comes in just over 2 inches. Cutting edge is 1 3/4 of an inch. Again, 448 stainless. You got brass liners. Again, black clip mother of pearl covering it. Nickel silver single ring bolsters. And then the secondary blades you have on it are a pen blade and a coping blade. And yeah, I could picture this being the kind of knife that the judge at the court would come out while everyone else is out there with their old stag or bone covered knives, or their celluloid whittlers out on the courthouse steps, and he would come out and pull out something like this because he's a gentleman, and then he would go about whittling with that as opposed to some knife with celluloid handles. So those are my pearl gentleman knives. These are my working man's gentleman's knives. Let's go back with these three here, which are, I think these are like, well, not this one so much, but these other two are like manicure knives, and that's why I threw them in there. This one I threw in simply because, well, we'll start with that one, and that's because if you notice here, it's for Boy Scouts of America, and this is their leader's knife. And you would expect that the leader of the Boy Scouts, they're the person who was in charge of the pack, would be a gentleman. And this is the knife that they chose for it. This is by Camillus, and it's just a little pen knife. It's a little, I believe, yeah, it's a little serpentine handled pen knife. You got a nice little clip blade on the top here, and then you have a secondary pen blade back here. And the knife itself is not a big knife, but what's he really going to be doing? 2 3/4 inches long. Just a nice little serpentine pen knife. And then we have here a little bit thicker, a little bit bigger, and the peach seed jig bone. And this is by Case, and this is their little, it's a little jackknife for them. If you notice, it has a clevis on the back, so you can actually use it for a fob knife. So you could actually hook a chain onto this and hook your pocket watch on the other side, pass the chain through a buttonhole so no one can steal your watch. And what's the pattern number on this one? This is their little 33 pattern jackknife. But what's really interesting in this one, well, it's really a pen knife in this case, because if you notice, what opens on the opposite end, and is a pair of little scissors. So you got your little manicure scissors on there with this little Case pen knife that's a manicure knife. So that one I would see as a gentleman's knife. And then over here is a Case Peanut. Now the Peanut is also a knife that started out as a bigger knife. It's just a jackknife that they shrunk down. And you got a nice clip blade going on with it. Usually the secondary blade on a peanut is a small pin blade. This one is a little different. Notice it's got a really good half stop. And also they've added another clevis to the back of it, which is something you do not normally see on a case peanut. But again, they made this for a fob, so you could hook it onto your keychain or hook it onto a chain attached to a pocket watch or something like that. And then again, the secondary blade has been replaced by a pair of manicure scissors. So that's pretty cool to me. It's like and then you've got the magenta bone there going on too. Copper liners, brass liners, brass pins, and then magenta bone. And there's your case shield. Really nice knife, and the lockup on it is just amazing. It's a beautiful little knife. Case does a really good job with peanuts. Okay, now I'm going to go over here to the lower right corner, and what I have here are what I will consider like the gentleman's multi-tools. And well, the very first one up here, I'm going to switch out, but we'll talk about it real quick anyway. And that is the pipe smoker's knife. You got the tamper down here for the bowl of the knife, and then you've got a main blade here, which you use for scraping out the bowl of the knife. And it's sometimes the blade is sharp, sometimes it is not, but usually you're going to clean it around with the back side of the blade, I believe. The front side is for your actual cutting chores if you want to use it. And then it's got this nice spike here, a long pin, which is, from what I understand, is actually used to poke into the tobacco so it'll breathe better, and you can, well, your pipe will taste better, I guess. I don't know. I don't smoke a pipe. Pipe smokers could tell more about it. This is a relatively inexpensive one, and it's made in Sheffield, England by Richards. But I think I'm going to swap this one out right now, and it's going to be my number 4 in the multi-tools. In theory, this one could also be swiped out, but anyway, we could say these two are kind of tied. All of these could be tied, actually, but this is the Toledo style of manicure knife with the wonderful covers on it, and you could also throw it almost in with the metal covers because they're usually like a brass or a gold tone metal, and then they are decorated with enamel, and they really look beautiful. And what you have blade wise is a long pin blade. These are usually 3 inches long or 74 millimeters. You see right there, 3 inches. So right at 3 inches long usually. And then also has a nice long nail file with the manicure tip going on there. See that? And then on the opposite side, you have a pair of scissors. So this is very much like the Victorinox Ambassador. And then you shrink it down and you've got your classic SD. That's where it starts off at and everything. But this is they're usually referred to as Toledo knives. And again, it's an equal end knife with a center back spring, similar to what you see in the classic SD by Victorinox, and also by the Ambassador, which is the bigger version of the classic SD, and it looks very much like this, except it has plastic handles. But one of these two would have to go. I don't know which one I would swap out, because I also have this doctor's knife, and I really like this doctor's knife. And this is not the 20th knife that I had off the screen that I want to talk about at the very end. But you got the nice long pin blade, and then you have the spatula blade. That's the way I like my doctor's knives to be. This one's kind of small. You got the pill crusher end on the back here. And this one is not at all a big knife. This one is only about 3 1/4 inches long, so it definitely fits into my my category of a gentleman's knife. And it was made by Schrade, and it has the wonderful desert ironwood covers on it. So it's a really pretty knife. But this is definitely my favorite of my gentleman's multi-tool knives. And it has the what was known as French ivory handles on it. And notice it's got it looks like either steel or nickel silver pins. I believe it's nickel silver pins going in it. You do see some very thin brass liners going on. And it has two tools on the back side. You got a little clevis here, so you can hook it onto your chain for your watch, so it acts as a fob knife too. And you've got a corkscrew, not the strongest looking corkscrew, but it will actually pull a cork out of a bottle of wine, something that a gentleman might want to have with him. And it also has the pin that you find on like your pipe tools, so you could actually use this for either cleaning out your fingernails if you wanted to do that, or use it for poking the tobacco in your pipe, or anything else you want to do. Get rid of what do you call it? Get a splinter out of your hand or something with a nice pin there. And beyond that, you also have a nice long spear blade. And finally, your manicure scissors. So everything that a gentleman might want with him. So there's my gentleman's multi-tools. We're going to pull out the pipe knife and leave these three. And that leaves us with these knives, the ones with the metal covers, or the, you could say like pewter tone, nickel silver covers, or I don't know really what the metal is on those, but I usually refer to them as the hunting scene equivalent knives. And we've already talked about this one, so we will move over into this one here. And I just realized, did I talk about the office knife before? No, I did not. You know what? Before I get to these, I already talked about these two knives because they're two of my favorites. But here's the other one, and this is my Camillus office knife, and it is an equal end penknife, and this has ivorite handles is what they call it, or ivorite covers, and which really translates into fake ivory. And you notice it's got brass pins and brass liners going on, and you've got a very short spear blade, but with a very long pull. Like I said, it's Camillus. And then on the other side, you have a very long spay blade, but this spay blade is known as an eraser blade because this was something that was used by secretaries and stuff. So in theory, this isn't really a gentleman's knife because it was used by secretaries in the work pools and everything. But for me, this is my one of my favorite gentleman's knives anyway, because well, it just looks great. And I actually collect office knives, so it's a subsection of my gentleman's knives. Now we can go on to these last two knives here before we go on to the very last knife. Yeah, marathon video, but you're seeing lots of knives, I think. This is one of those scenic knives I like to talk about. And this one has just typical blades. You've got your Spearmaster blade. This one was made in Japan. I did a video on this, and it explains what the little logo is there. Maybe I'll put it in the down below who made this knife. I can't remember off the top of my head. I know it from the handle, and I just really like it because of that southwest handle going on with the cactus in the middle. You've got the lynx on one side and the eagle head on the other side, and it's just I really just like that scene. It is not what you normally see in the Scenic Knives, so that's one of the reasons I also like it. This one definitely says America when you look at it because of the cactus in the middle. It's not as cool as this. It's not as definitely not as expensive as this one is or anything like that, but it's just a really cool knife. And then the other one here is you know, a little bit of sex going on and everything else. You've got the huntress here, or something of that nature. And I will admit it, I just really like this knife, and it's not something you see every day with the woman on the cover or something, and maybe it's more of a cad of a knife instead of a gentleman's knife, because but I can picture a gentleman carrying such a knife, especially back in the old days. And I just really kind of like it. And this one has really good action going on with it. The blades open and close very smoothly. The stainless steel looks really good. It is made in solid in Germany, which is another plus to it. I like it when these knives are made in Germany. And I don't know, just one of my favorites. And so there you have all of my favorite gentleman's knife except for one. And this one is a little out of the ordinary. And for most part, most people would say, no, that's not a true gentleman's knife. And true, it is not. But what I was thinking of is these are the knives that the gentleman might carry, and they would pull it out in polite society. But we all know that we carry knives that we show, and then there's also that knife that you might be carrying that you really don't want people to know about, but you have it on you anyway, simply because, well, you might need it. And so I was thinking, what would a gentleman's knife be for those occasions where he may not need to be, where he's not necessarily a gentleman per se. So, for instance, he might run into a ruffian who decides that he wants to take that gentleman's knife, and says, your knife or your life. And that gentleman would have to have some kind of knife on him for protection. But he still wants it to be a certain class of knife. And so I was thinking back of, end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, those kind of times where we were beginning to get civilized, but we weren't quite completely civilized. And we're talking about the time where a gentleman might have a cane sword or something like that for protection. And I was thinking, what would be the folding knife that a gentleman might carry upon him that he's not going to show or talk about, but he's going to need it just in case something comes up that is ungentlemanly. And that's when I came up with this one here. And this is my, what I would call my gentleman's dirk. I've shown this before. I did a video on it, so I won't go into great details with it. But we can see that it is not the length of your typical gentleman's knife. We're talking about a knife that comes in at right at 5 1/4 inches closed. It has a very heavy pommel that if you were to whack someone on the side of the head with it, they would definitely feel it. So you could actually use it as a club before you actually get the blade out if you needed to. And then once you get that blade deployed, you have a blade that is, 4 1/4 inches long with a cutting edge that is 3 3/4 of an inch. So you've got a definitely long cutting edge. The blade is locked in place, so it's not going to close, and it is definitely something that is long and sleek and pokey, and something that you might not expect on the gentleman, but the gentleman might need to have on him. And I could see him tucking this into the top of his boot, or slipping it down into his sleeve, or perhaps right behind his back or something like that, or just in a little waist pocket, so that if he needed it, he would have it. So this is the gentleman's knife that is not talked about and not seen, but is deployed when necessary. These are the ones that you were more likely to see. Any case, there you have it, my very long marathon on gentlemen's knives. And if you stuck around to the end, I hope you enjoyed it. If you stuck around until I just told you the last three, well, I could call you names now and you wouldn't even know because you didn't stick around. But just to recap, this knife, and this knife were my top three at the very beginning. I'll let you go. I'm going to have a nice little slideshow. Let me take just a second to thank you once again for dropping by and spending a few minutes here at Knife Chats with the Pies. I really do appreciate it, and I do appreciate any comments that you leave. So please remember to give me that thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode is up and running. Thanks again for dropping by. Really do appreciate your time here.